What's up, everyone? I am Kimmy Chex, joined here virtually with my two friends, Marcus Grant and Adam Rank. Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers were just named to the all-decade team as our all-decade quarterbacks, but I want to give this a little fun fantasy spin. So, Marcus, I'm going to kick it off with you. Who is the better all-decade fantasy quarterback?
Well, I'm going to go chalkity chalk chalk and say with Aaron Rodgers here. I mean, the guy was lights out for a stretch in the middle of the decade there. I mean, it just felt like even at his worst, he was still a top three quarterback. I mean, there was a year where everybody's like, what's wrong with Aaron Rodgers? And he was still like a top eight quarterback. The guy has been lights out. He obviously doesn't have the rings, if we're going to go with that argument. But in terms of fantasy, the production you would get out of him every year, the fact that he would throw for, 4,000 yards, he'd give you a ton of touchdowns. And on top of it, he never threw more than 8 interceptions. I mean, he threw 11 in 2010, but after that, never more than 8 interceptions in a year. So he wasn't giving you those -2 points, just the picture of consistency for the better part of the decade. So I'm going with A-Rod.
All right, Rank, what about you?
I'm going to go with Tom Brady. I know, surprise, surprise. But in the beginning of the decade, in 2010, he was one of the top fantasy quarterbacks, and that has continued throughout pretty much the majority of the decade. And like Aaron Rodgers, this is a quarterback that does not throw a lot of interceptions. And even over the last couple of years, where people might wonder what is happening to Tom Brady, is he falling off a cliff? He's had at least 4,000 passing yards in each of the last 3 seasons, including 2017, when he led the NFL with 4,577 passing yards. And over the last 3 years, he has thrown more touchdown passes than Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, last 3 years, his touchdown total 16, 25, 25 for Brady, 32, 29, 24. Rodgers got him by 1 last year. So I think Tom Brady, and this is without the rings or anything, just from fantasy, and nobody picked Tom Brady. Everybody was under the impression that Tom Brady was not a good fantasy quarterback. So everybody ignored him, and you were allowed to pick him in the 14th round or whatever.
And now with Brady to the Buccaneers, he may just be an even better fantasy quarterback. But guys, I want to go a little bit off menu from the all-decade team. I want to throw it to you, Rank, first. Who would be your ultimate all-decade fantasy quarterback?
This one's a little bit personal to me, so I'm probably going to go with Peyton Manning because I won a number of championships with him. Obviously, he had the injury in his final year in Indianapolis, and when he went to the Denver Broncos, nobody wanted to draft him, and I ended up taking Peyton Manning. I think it was in the 10th round, like something ridiculous that would have never happened in previous years, and he was lights out that season. And then the following year, I doubled down and went with him again, and he threw 55 touchdown passes. I could have started nobody outside of the quarterback position, and I would have won with Peyton Manning. So I don't know. I know he didn't play the full decade, and some guys might have scored more points overall, but I think as far as a fantasy impact, Peyton Manning's got to be my choice.
All right, Marcus, what about you?
I'm going to go Drew Brees here. I mean, a guy who was just lights out year in and year out throughout the decade. I mean, 5 times in the last 10 years, he led the league in passing yards. In 8 of the last 10 seasons, he's had 30 or more touchdown passes. I mean, the guy is just a picture of fantasy consistency. And now, even though he's got basically, Michael Thomas, he's just peppering him with targets. It doesn't matter. The totals are still there. The fantasy points are still there. Even this past year, when people were sort of shying away from Drew Brees and expecting him to kind of fall off a cliff, the guy was still giving you about 20 to 22 fantasy points per game. Would have been even better overall had he not missed 5 games with a broken thumb. So I'm going to stay with Drew Brees down there in New Orleans.
All right, Rank?
I like it. No, I'm not changing my mind if that's what you're saying. Marcus makes a compelling
point. Me as a Saints fan, I'm like, okay, do you want to? I'm trying to bait you. It's like, Peyton Manning's good, but come on, Drew Brees.
I might have even put Drew Brees on the all-decade team regardless. So listen. I'm not going to say anything bad about Drew Brees. He's awesome. He had 5,000 passing yards in half of the years in this decade. He was pretty great.
All right, let's take it back to Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady for this 2020 draft. Marcus, I want to start off with you. Where are you taking Rodgers?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely has some value. It's not what it once was. Once upon a time, I actually won a league drafting Aaron Rodgers in the 4th round. Like, those days are certainly gone. But if you were willing to wait a little bit longer, he'll still be on the board potentially in the 8th or 9th round. And that's where I feel comfortable taking Aaron Rodgers, just sort of knowing that he may not be the fantasy quarterback he once was, but still, more often than not, he will be a guy who could be around the top 10 or top 12 in any given week.
Rank, what about you and Tom Brady in the 2020 draft?
I'll probably be able to wait on him. As you look at some of the quarterbacks that'll be going off the board very early, you have Patrick Mahomes, you have Lamar Jackson, obviously, Deshaun Watson, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson. So you'll probably be able to wait. And you might again go back into the 13th, 14th round and be able to take Tom Brady. I'm willing to roll the dice with him because now he's going to be paired with Chris Godwin, who I think is one of the best up and coming receivers in the game. They've got Mike Evans there. They got Bruce Arians as the head coach. So 24 touchdowns last year. I think that Brady will easily surpass that, probably get close to 30. If I don't get one of those studs in the beginning of the draft, then I think Brady's a pretty good contingency plan in the later rounds.
All right. Well, huge shout out to both Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady for making the all-decade team. It was great to chat with both you, Marcus and Rank. Nice to see some familiar faces in self-isolation. But make sure, everyone, you check out the complete list of the all-decade team at NFL.com/all-decade team. We'll see you next time.